Welcome to the Bike Shed podcast, where we talk about all things software engineering, current tech events, and not having enough emojis in the Discord. I'm your co-host, UI guy, coffee curator, and professional amateur powerlifter, Scott K. And alongside with me today are my co-hosts, your principal engineer's senior engineering lead, a man whose opinions change faster than the weather, the only person to read every RFC and reply with comments, Matt Hamlin. And on my other side, the spice you didn't know you needed, Dillon Spicy Take Curry. What are we up to today?
I feel like that's an apt intro for today's episode, Scott. Yeah, first off, like Dillon, you were talking about you got a new keyboard. I'm curious, like, how's that been going for you?
It's been good. I set it up at work yesterday. It's got some really cushy, quiet keycaps.
Is it like thocky, or is thocky like an actual term that people use in the mechanical keyboard industry?
Probably.
The community, yes.
I said keycaps and I meant switches. The switches are really nice. Yeah.
What kind of switches?
They're called red, clear top, silent. I don't know. They're complicated, man.
So they're silent switches.
Yeah, they're like pretty silent. They're really nice.
What kind of keyboard?
It's a Newfie or Newfi.
Oh.
Have you heard of that?
Yes, Matt was looking at them. Now I know why.
It's got like a aluminum top with a plastic translucent bottom, so the RGB shines through the bottom. It's insane. Everyone in the office is looking at me like that guy's really good at coding.
Nice. Yeah, that's the best way to flex on your coworkers is with the new mechanical keyboard.
Yeah.
It's actually entirely coincidental that, like, I think maybe 2 days before Scott's showing off his keyboards to the camera that no one can see it because it's an audio podcast. But entirely coincidental that like I think maybe 2 days before you said that you were getting that keyboard, that I was actually looking at the Newfie keyboards, and so and then you basically, the fact that you bought one was like, all right, maybe I should just get one also. So so hopefully mine's arriving. I don't know. Maybe next week.
Oh, you ordered it?
Maybe for the next time we're recording.
Did you order the Air or the regular?
Yeah, I got the what is it? The Air 75 V2, I think. Originally, I was looking at the Air 60 because I like the smaller form factor, but the fact that it didn't have like sort of the function key row at the top was like kind of a reason for me to go to the 75. Mainly because I just like the media controls and like the volume and whatnot. Like that's really convenient. And the 60, you can like hold down the function key, I think, and sort of like do the same behavior. But yeah, I was like, all right, whatever. I'll just get the 75. It's $10 more.
So what are we talking about today? Keyboards?
Well, maybe we should do an episode on keyboards. But today we're talking a little bit about engineering levels, what they are, like how they can be maybe confusing at times, like what it might mean for promotion from junior to senior to staff, etc. And yeah, I think there's like kind of a lot of interesting things to talk about. Before we dig into that, though, we just wanted to give a quick shout out to a friend of the pod, like maybe one of our few listeners right now, Yair. He gave us some decent feedback the other day in one of our Discord servers. We really appreciate it. We want to keep that feedback coming. If anyone else has any other feedback or comments or whatnot that they want to share, feel free to join our new community Discord server. The invite for it should be on the website now. We really appreciate his feedback. So let's dig into engineering levels. I think I think this is like kind of a very nuanced discussion. I think there's like a lot of different aspects we can take this down. I think something maybe that's worth thinking about is like engineering levels and how they like how do you handle getting promoted. And I think oftentimes at different companies, it's like the process to get promoted from one level to another is very convoluted and I don't know, difficult to reason about. Like I think if your company has a well written out career ladder, usually it's like not actually useful, what I've found. like very vague, and you kind of need to like wait for some people to like pave the path of going from one level to another before you kind of understand the guardrails of what's expected. Curious from your guys' perspective, like maybe talk a little bit about, if you had like sort of a career jump, like a level jump that was unique or tricky to get through.
You want me to go first?
Go ahead. Yeah.
Cool. I think the first thing I think of in terms of promotion, that's what you want me to touch on, right, Matt?
Yeah, I
Is
think that would be worth. Yeah.
Yeah, cool. Is that within a like when you're at a company and you want a promotion, you need to make it very clear very early on to your manager that that's what you want. Because if you wait too long and you expect at your performance review to get promoted, it's highly unlikely that you're going to get promoted unless you made it very clear you wanted that. I've just seen that in the past. Maybe there's unique cases where people just get promoted, but I don't think that's very normal. And then the other way to get promoted is just find a new job. That's probably the easier way to get promoted from what I've seen.
That's a great answer. So yeah, the two questions: how do you handle getting promoted? So Dillon calling out, making clear what you want from your manager ahead of time. The sooner you let them know, uh, the more likely you will get that promotion. And then the other thing you brought up was like a level jump that was unique, I think, Matt, right? So I immediately thought of my current situation of actually going from staff down to senior. We could get into this a little bit later, but more so, I have been considered a staff engineer for the past few years. Took a role that has me be a senior engineer. And to be honest, it didn't bother me that the title changed at all, as essentially it's a role at a Airbnb, and the compensation was great, and it allows me to get in at maybe like a lower level, so the expectation might not be as high and a little bit less pressure. So it'll allow me to be more successful as I grow into that role. I was trying to think of a example of going up levels. I didn't with the time frame yet, but that I found as unique in the sense that it's levels are not the same from company to company, and expectations aren't the same from company to company. But just knowing that my title is a little bit lower, I feel like I have even more of a strength coming in and feeling like I can really set a high bar for myself and really show that maybe I'm actually at the higher level.
Yeah, that's a good call out. I think like levels, but yeah, exactly what you're saying. Levels between companies are like very hard to sort of align. Like, what might be a senior at one company might be a junior at another company, or might be a staff at another company. It sort of depends on how they've structured their career ladder, or the like, how they've laid out the path from going from one level to the next. Um, yeah, it's interesting. I think like in many ways, and maybe this is like just the way I see it. Maybe Scott, you disagree, but like I think when you like, especially going from like maybe like either smaller companies or maybe less well sort of like less popular, or sort of like not as well known companies to more popular companies or like bigger companies. So like, for example, like your move from Tollbit to Airbnb, it's like you're joining a more, I don't know, prestigious is like maybe the wrong word for it, but like sort of a more well-known company. And so like the levels are maybe a little bit more, I don't know, like well-versed or like well-structured potentially. Um, like, a senior at Airbnb has like a little bit more weight than a senior at Wayfair, for example, just because it's like you have that, again, I keep coming back to prestigious as like the word to describe it, but there's probably a better word for it. Um, but it's just like there's, I don't know, more insight to it. And the same way that like, a senior at Google is probably seen as a stronger engineer, maybe by most people, than a senior at Wayfair, for lack of a better comparison.
I entirely do agree, actually, Matt. Like, I think what you're getting at is, yeah, you say prestigious is a good one, I think, but like competitive, in a sense, is also another word I was thinking of to describe what you're saying. But smaller companies essentially are more likely to give you a larger title, yeah, they're more likely to give you a more all-encompassing title because you're doing a larger scope for them, as opposed to being a little bit more in a niche at a larger company. And then the more, I guess, like I was gonna say prestigious as well, company you're at, the harder it might be to get some of those titles as well. So it's just interesting that you could probably some small businesses, as Matt and I have realized, is like they don't even care. Like if you self-title yourself, they might just call you you're a software engineer, you're front end engineer, and then you want to call yourself a staff, go for it, right? But as you are at a larger, more, I guess again, prestigious business, those titles tend to reflect a little bit more. People like put a little bit more weight into them, and then they are harder to obtain or achieve.
I'm going to quickly touch on what Scott said because it brought back a thought from like early in my career where I went from like working at a startup to working at an agency, and I only had like 3 years of experience. And I was doing like prototype work for this agency, so they could build like examples for potential clients to sell them. For like building an iOS app, I would build like a web prototype. And somewhere later on working there, I no longer needed to do that work. And so I was like trying to fill a niche in the business of like doing marketing. And I just like self-titled myself at the agency as like the director of marketing because nobody was doing it, but it was just hilarious at that time to be like the boss, like the CEO of the company was like, yeah, it's fine. You can have that title. But it didn't mean anything. It didn't change my salary. So it's funny to see how at small businesses, I feel like titles don't really matter at all, and they start to matter more at more, um, just like I don't know, prestigious companies, I guess, like you guys are saying.
We grew really fast at Wayfair. Wayfair was when I started, Wayfair hadn't IPO'd, and then they IPO'd, and they were rapidly growing into a larger tech org. And I remember working prior to Wayfair, so years ago with a colleague who was like, it takes you a decade to become a senior. Seniors are actually like you've done like 10 years of experience at least to be a senior. But when you're working at a tech company that's smaller or a company that's rapidly growing like that, you might still be pretty young and not really have that much experience and start gaining really high titles really fast. And there's pros and cons to moving up the ladder faster. I have a lot of thoughts. We'll probably get into this, but I have a lot of thoughts about, do you want to move up the ladder super fast at a company and then realize when you try to go to the next company that you might not have the confidence in what you do? Like if you're been an engineer for 5 years, you go from senior to like director, and now you're trying to be a director, and now your options are limited because you have to work at maybe like a startup or a smaller business that is willing to give you that opportunity. It's interesting that you'll see some folks move up the ladder faster, and sometimes you'll think, oh, like I think I'm better than that person. Why don't I move up the ladder faster? And it is not always, in my opinion, about the speed in which you move up the ladder. It is about your confidence. It's about the ability for you to execute and soak up as much knowledge and make sure you're still learning at the job and in the job that you're at, that you feel like you're growing and that you can move comfortably to a new job. The worst feeling I ever had was working at a company for so long that I didn't know or have the confidence that I could go and do an interview and get a new job. Those are terrible feelings, and they're usually feelings that you either need to do some work on the weekends, and I hate that we have to do this in our industry, but do some work on the weekends for you to get some confidence in your ability to execute, or finding better opportunities at work to make sure that you're working on something that you're not comfortable in. And sometimes the worst thing to do at work is tasks you're not comfortable in because you don't want to do them. But the more you do them, the more you get comfortable.
Yeah, I think I guess like more of an as an aside, like I'm curious like what your guys' take on like why maybe most of us moved pretty fast at Wayfair in terms of the career ladder. I think my thinking of it is like maybe twofold is like just a sort of the years in which we were at Wayfair, which we overlapped at Wayfair, sort of like I think those years just generally across the industry scaled pretty quickly. But then also maybe just like Wayfair itself was also scaling relatively quickly within those years. So like I know when I joined, it was like a huge hiring push. Like a ton of people being hired almost every week. Obviously that slowed down over the years and like sort of then picked back up over the years and like sort of in these periods. But I feel like that maybe contributed to it.
Yeah, one thing to note too is in those earlier years, right, Matt, we were growing really fast. We were moving up levels really fast, but towards the latter half, as the company, I guess, struggled to find an identity in what they were making, you noticed that the growth trajectory was clearly slimmed down. You still saw some people grow really high up in that organization, but we were not moving as fast. I think in the first 3 years, I was from level 1 to level 3, and then I was level 3 for like 4 or 5 years before I became a level 4 there. So, I mean, I just want to note, like at Wayfair, level 1, 2, 3, and 4 were like junior, regular, senior, and staff at the time. They even changed the levels. However, all these companies, they tend to have their own lingo. And like I said a little bit earlier, the levels don't often actually mean the same from company to company. It's really just like what what is your experience within the company and maybe some that you bring from outside. So they just used 1 through 4 leveling. At Airbnb, they actually, like, if you're a senior, you're called a G9, and then they go for 10, 11, 12. It's kind of wild. So I know that at HubSpot, I'll speak for Matt a little bit. It's a software engineer, probably a junior, a software engineer, and then like a senior 1 and a senior 2, and then you move up to staff. They do have titles at Airbnb alongside that. So like a G9 would be a senior software engineer, and then it moves up to a staff engineer and a senior staff engineer, principal architect, like that. But levels are just kind of a little bit arbitrary. Yes, people speak into their levels, but I also feel sometimes people, based on circumstances and maybe happenstance and luck, kind of fall ass backwards into their position based on need. So I've talked to a friend who we used to work with at Wayfair about seeing some people at like director levels that I didn't expect. And he said, oh, they just really advocated for it. And some people get to director level within the same company, but some people leave and also get to that level pretty fast as well. And I feel like it's a level of luck. It's not all luck. It's definitely skill, but sometimes the company has to have a necessity for you to end up in that situation.
Yeah, exactly, Scott. It's like if there's no opportunity at that place, then what are you getting promoted in to do? Like, and I found that at Wayfair, I went from L2 when I started to L3, and I never really made it to L4. Part of that was definitely on me not having the ambition at that time. But looking back also in the last few years I was there just wasn't a lot of opportunity within the teams I was in to like grow into that level. Like if I got to that level, like what would I be doing more within the team? There just wasn't a lot going on. And another point you made earlier was like if you possibly started to feel like how hireable am I? And I think that's a good sense of like if you're not being challenged at your job, you're not going to be like increasing your skills and be very hireable. I feel like where I'm at now, I'm doing so many different challenging things all at once that I feel the most hireable I've ever been, even before getting hired here, which is like crazy to look back on. Like I feel like I've learned more in 6 months than the last 3 years, which is like I'm kind of sad to say it in a way, but I'm really glad that I've made the change.
Yeah, I think something you were kind of hinting on, Scott, and also Dylan, like I think a lot of people look at, the only way to grow is to go to the next level. And I think that's maybe not always exactly correct. I think like certainly that is an avenue for growth within a company. You could also like grow by going to another company, like what Scott was saying, like you could just like move to another company to change levels or change the growth there. But I think also importantly, a lot of people maybe sort of miss out on the opportunity to like grow. I don't know the right like term, but if you think of like a levels as like sort of vertically, like you can grow laterally within your level, like sort of branch out to other things. I mean, Dillon was kind of talking about this, and like when he was working at the agency, right? It's like you just move into another area that your company or your team or your organization, whatever scope you want to think about, is like has a need, like grow into that need, and then I think for the most part, if you're working at a larger company, you probably won't necessarily see a lot of maybe return on investment from the company, or sort of like the company might not see that work your effort you're putting into. But I think you will see it internally in terms of like your own growth of like things you better understand, things you might be more interested in if you decide to pivot or whatever, or just like make you seem more fit for a different company maybe potentially.
I just wanted to add on to that, Matt, about like seeing opportunity within a company. I think that's probably the fastest way to grow within an org is to like on your own figure out what the company needs and go and solve it. Don't like silo yourself into, oh, I'm a software engineer, I'm just gonna write code all day. Like figure out the company's problems and like call those out and work with teams beyond your team to figure that out. Like the company will notice that you're being very valuable to them and appreciate it. And I sometimes people don't want to do that because they're like, oh wait, now I'm not going to be coding all day. I'm going to be doing this other stuff that I didn't really sign up for. But if you want to grow quickly, that's the way to do it. Is like solve problems for the company.
Yeah, and I think even if you don't see like top-down appreciation from the company you're in of that, I think you'll probably definitely see people in in your organization that will appreciate it. So like maybe your direct manager or maybe the skip level, things like that. They'll like probably notice what you're doing and you know give you praise for it. And if anything, it like maybe opens the doors down the road for other things as well. It's like it's like, oh, 2 years ago I remember this person that was doing X, and it's like great that they might be a great fit for this thing now because they've been continuing to put in that effort.
Yeah, and just on top of what you're saying, Matt, like there is a lot of good examples of you kind of going above and beyond at Wayfair and filling gaps that maybe wasn't asked of you, but turned out to be appreciated by your fellow front end engineers, like things like documentation stuff that we didn't get enough time to really spend on to make it good. However, like you would try to do that, and you ended up building a rapport with front end engineers and a perception of yourself that like Matt does everything. He can do it really fast. And well, to a degree, that's definitely true about you, but like you really made a name for yourself and people knew of you because you actually just showed that you cared and found opportunities that maybe you didn't want to do, but you saw that these were problems. I actually faced something like this at Airbnb uh, literally yesterday, where I use the O Vim and I'm gung ho about making sure I use it in a virtual space. And there's like one command line in the docs. The docs there are actually really good, but for this, it's not because everyone just uses VS Code. I assume based on the docs, and I thought that like, oh, once I get this running, I'm actually just gonna convert this into a more clear doc and ask to update the doc. And that's not something anyone's asking for, but I know the next person who's me who goes to do this doesn't want to spend hours. They would rather have like a template that they could work off of. Right now, the template to work off is somebody else's dot files config, and I'm getting a little engineer speak here, but not everyone uses NeoVim there. Some of them use Vim, some use Tmux and whatnot. So it's not like I can just copy and pasta a template, but I'm going to leave a template for folks. I just see that as an opportunity. I'm already doing the work to get there, and someone is going to see that you did it and appreciate it. And those are things that I learned from Matt at Wayfair.
Yeah, I just wanted to add on to Matt's praises, seconding something Scott said. But basically, um, the fact that Matt would go like outside the team and like work with others and like try to solve problems, I think it helped him as an engineer like build a stronger mental model than every front end engineer about like how all the different systems at Wayfair connected. And he was able to like drive conversations with multiple stakeholders across teams that we weren't able to do. Like we would show up in those meetings and just be like, Matt, what do you think? Because we knew you had that context, and we just hadn't put in the work to like connect those dots ourselves. But and then that's something like I look back on, and I think I've improved on a lot where I am now. But yeah, it's something I look back and I'm like, man, I wish I had done that more. But I'm doing it now, so that's good.
I want to reflect on that point quickly. I just have to say that Dillon is on fire with that point. That's a Diablo point about Matt. That at Airbnb, I have made it a point. It was just started, but I'm already trying to reach out to other teams, like teams that are web platform and design system, to learn about what their expectations are so that I can be the best partner as possible. And I learned that exact same thing from Matt. This is the Matt episode.
Dylan, did you have a follow-up point there?
Go ahead. I'll save it.
Well, so I think one thing that is easy to overlook that with this stuff is like, um, it takes a lot of time and effort to build up that leverage or that context, and I think the context is what gives you leverage. I think there's this I don't know person on Twitter that was like really active years and years ago that would tweet out like really sort of sage wisdom within like the VC space. But I think one of his takes was like around leverage and like information is like leverage within within the economy. But like the thing that I think a lot of people maybe overlook is that um, maybe no matter what your level is, like the more time and experience you have at that company or in that role or in that organization is going to give you a lot more leverage in terms of delivering results that are valued, right? Like the fact that maybe I had like I knew the teams to connect with in the later year was like or like at Wayfair was because of the 8 years that I spent there, right? Like the fact that I was able to like connect with other people across the org and like understand that over time is just like slowly build up this network of people I know who to reach out to, things that I've seen happening at the org and things like that. So I think that's something that maybe a lot of, and this is like maybe going down a different point or a different path, but it's like, I think another opportunity of like growing within your level is just like sort of the more time spent in that level or at that organization gives you a lot more return on investment than if you're a fresh person coming into the company at that level. Like you're just not going to have the same perspective or context or awareness that the person that's been there 10 years is going to have. Which is like, I think another interesting thing is like, often we look at, switching from company to company and like maybe getting promoted, but it's like, you might come in at a different level, but like there's people that have been at that company for a while probably, and they probably know a lot more than you do when you're joining. And it's like kind of this weird, or at least I found this especially when I joined HubSpot is like, there's this like weird vibe of like, it's like, am I actually this level? Like, should I be a level lower? Because like, there's the people I look around that are maybe a level lower than me, but like they know so much more because they've just been there, right? They have the benefit of like having spent time there and understanding the ins and outs of engineering at HubSpot, for example. And so it's just this weird like thing to come to terms with. I don't know. Maybe it's just like my, what's that? Like the like where you always think that you're like what
Imposter syndrome.
Yes, imposter syndrome. Exactly. It's like it's 100% leaning into that. It's like I shouldn't be at this level because these other people know it better than me. Like, why are they not at this level also, or whatever?
Well, I would just want to quickly add that it's interesting that I'm not at that point, and you've been at HubSpot about 3-4 months now. And one point people always say is it takes up to 6 months to realistically ramp up to a job. You're not quite there yet. So I'm interested in maybe how I'll feel in a couple months to like revisit that discussion. If I have that. I had a lot of imposter syndrome at Wayfair, especially middle to end. And I don't think imposter syndrome is necessarily good, but it's also, I think, a sign of honesty that you actually want to make sure you're adding value. But I just mostly want to point out it's probably something worth revisiting in like 3 months to see, Matt, where you're at and if I'm starting to feel that same level of imposter syndrome.
Yeah, I wanted to add something from a little bit earlier, like 5 minutes ago, um, related to like when you start a new job, like one of the things I did at Whoop that I'm very proud of looking back. I want to, since we've been praising Matt, I want to stop praising Matt and praise myself a little bit for something good that I did. When I joined Whoop,
This is great.
I before I got like super ingrained into a project and super distracted, one of the things that I made a point was to set up as many one-on-ones with people with my team, close to my team, within the first 2 weeks, because I just wanted to like pick the brains, understand what everyone's doing, so that when something does come up down the line, I know who to reach out to. And I set up like 25 one-on-ones my first 2 weeks. It was a lot, but looking back, I'm like super glad I did it, and I recommend this to everyone. Is just get to know as many people as you can, because when you get deep in the weeds on a project, you can be like, oh, this person on this team that's very far from my team knows about this, and I can go talk to them now. Go ahead, Scott.
So this is exactly what I was getting at and saying about learning from Matt kind of, but coming into Airbnb, I've been reaching out to the people who interviewed me, trying to make connections. They actually told me in an interview that like one of the hard things is that we're remote and that you might not know people, so you're gonna have to go out of your way to make connections. And I really did take that to heart. I've now worked in this is my third remote environment, and I've learned that that is the case. But now that I'm at such a big engineering company, I just figure like shoot your shot with a bunch of people, see who's receptive to wanting to develop a relationship. There's actually some awesome like things that they do. Like there's a Boston group that meets, so I'm gonna make sure I go to that in April. Well, it's April now, but it's like next week, and then they meet for launches and stuff. It really cool. So like people get together, and you get to actually meet people in person. So there's that, and then there's also this like really cool front end thing they do, where every 3 weeks you can sign up and they'll pair you with a different front end person. So it's like ways to try to meet people, and like all these are like kind of simple ideas that I wish I had promoted, but they really work or give you opportunity to work at the culture there and like want you to be more successful. They drive these opportunities for you to meet. And I've reached out to like a lot of my interviewers. I've had some of my interviewers reach out to me. I've talked to my recruiter a lot. I've had a really good experience in a week, but I'm really just trying to do what Dillon is saying. I'm just trying to make sure I know who owns what. I want to ask questions and get forgiveness later. See how people are receptive to messages.
I think since this is the episode where we're praising everyone, I think one thing I do want to call out, like I think Scott is uniquely good at building a really great network. And this is also something kind of similar to like that time and the level, right? Like just like building a network across a company is like going to, and like across multiple companies, is just going to deliver just returns on investment over the years. And this is something we've always like maybe said that Scott has done better maybe than most other people that we've worked with. It's just like he has connections at almost anywhere you can think of, and it's not that he's like actively going out to just like form a connection just to have that connection. It's like he's just like genuinely excited about connecting with people, which is something like I can't do. Like I don't know. I consider myself maybe introverted, so it's like hard for me to like go in and kind of do the thing you were talking about, Dillon, where it's just like you set up 25 one-on-ones in 2 weeks. But something I have found useful, and I've done this like only a few times, but like for people that aren't as excited about just talking to people, is maybe consider setting up one-on-ones with someone that you interact with, here and there. So it's like it kind of like a friction one-on-one almost, but not actually like a pain point. But it's like okay, like some random person gave me some review feedback on PR. I might reach out to them and just like grab have a coffee chat in their remote, like just like have a quick 30-minute huddle and just chat with them, right? Like it could be about the PR, it could just be about like tell me more about like what you do at this company or whatever. Like I think maybe we're getting into tips on onboarding, but I think it's like you don't have to go out and just like sort of connect with as many people as possible within the first few weeks of either getting promoted, joining a company, whatever it is. But sometimes it can just be like natural interactions that then lead to building those connections over time.
This is going to be a little bit of an oversimplification. The way I see it is just like try to be nice to every person you interact with. And then when you talk to somebody, just try to find some common interest that you share and talk about it. And I feel like that's how I built it. And my level might not be like, sure, I was a staff before, or I'm a senior now, whatever. I might not be a director, or I've chosen not to be an engineering manager. Maybe one day, maybe I'll want to manage, but I still really love doing the work. But I'm happy where I'm at, and I'm not like dying to be CTO. So it's important to remember that Matt talked about like I might have a big network, but I'm not, and I'm not at the top level of where we're at, but it's okay. That's okay. You are where you want to be. And if like pushing harder for me to be like a director or a senior staff engineer was the goal, like hopefully one day I'll grow into something like that. But I want to go into the level and have the confidence that I'm going to succeed at this level. The some of the worst fears you can have is like, will I be successful at Tollbit? When I was a quote full stack engineer, I was a little bit nervous, like, can I do this? Because I'm really not a true backend, but that little bit of scariness or scaredness, for a lack of a better term, was good for me. It like was motivating. So a little bit is okay, but you don't want to just somehow luck into a position and then be in that position and not be able to do anything. So you're going to rely, even at your level, on other folks in your network and making friends, but you want to just make sure you can have confidence going into that role.
I just want to call out that, like, sometimes people say, let's create a net. You got to create a network. That's the most important thing. And they're like getting a little bit obsessed about like just progressing in their career, and creating a network is sort of why they're doing that. But we're spending like most of our life at work. You should be trying to create genuine connections, genuine like friendships. Because like, why else would you spend all that time at work if you're not enjoying yourself, like spending time with these people? So I think it's like a really important part of this, to me at least. Some other people might not agree. Maybe they're just like, I go to work and I just want to get it over with and get paid. But if you're gonna, to me, if you're spending every day with all this time, like, you should be enjoying it.
I agree with that. I actually want to just quickly call out that I see every networking opportunity as a friendship, and I don't really think about it as a networking opportunity. I just want to meet people. And sometimes it's hard for me too, Matt. I know you said you're introverted. Sometimes I can be that way, but it's just say hi, see if there's common interests, see if you can teach someone something. This is something I should have brought up. It is good to try to teach people things selflessly. You might learn that that person was maybe not the right person, but you gave it your best shot and you were proactive about it. And that person won't forget you, and that person will refer you later.
Yeah, I think I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I feel like we're kind of like hitting at a pretty good, maybe sort of summary and ending point here. Um, I don't know if you guys have further thoughts that you wanted to dig into related to it. I feel like we could, as with every topic, I feel like we could go on talking for hours and hours, but I think it could be worth like maybe us trimming it there. Scott, it looks like you have one last point to make.
Yeah, I do want to say that like a lot of our early episodes, we're going to scratch the surface of topics, but we plan on revisiting and deep diving into a lot of these topics again. But we just have so much to say, and we want to get some surface level takes out there. All I want to really say is basically, levels, do they matter? It depends. Yes and no. It's really a yes and no. Like, you want to make sure you're progressing in your career, but levels will be different from job to job. And yes, you might want to achieve like CTO, maybe even a CEO at some point in your career, and you want to try to set those boundaries, but you got to make sure you're looking for those opportunities by making sure you're getting the growth constantly. But it depends what you want out of your job, and it depends what satisfies you. And I'll just reiterate some of my points. Doing the work and seeing my creations, that's satisfaction for me. The level matters in the sense that I want to make sure I'm growing, but it doesn't matter in the sense that I don't care to tell you I'm a senior engineer versus a principal engineer and be at the same place and not learn and grow. You need to balance what matters that makes you happy and feel complete at work.
All right. With that, do we want to pivot into our stand-up updates? Scott, what's new with you?
Yeah, so I don't really have a good one. I just kind of feel like I've been saying it this whole time, but I'm onboarding at a new job. It's been the I don't want to call the onboarding easy, but it's been the most laid back is probably a better way to describe it. Onboarding I've done. I I'm just gonna quickly call out that when I was at Wayfair, it was still like a startup. So even though that onboarding was slow because they gave me the wrong computer because that was a thing back then, um, it was maybe more to learn because I didn't know Git and stuff. I was really raw at the time. It was like 13, 14 years ago. Um, and then the last two companies I started were startups. They were you're writing code day one, which is great. And there's just less rules and guardrails and maybe internal tools. So it's been a little bit slower. It's been a lot of meetings, but I've gotten super inspired and I'm drinking the Kool-Aid and I'm really excited to be there. I haven't really written any code this week. I've been editing my dot files a bit, and I played with monorepos a few weeks back. I'd like to still build this bun watcher, but I don't know when I'm going to have the time just yet. I'll kick it over to you guys though. What's your stand-up updates?
For me, I've been doing some morning workouts this last week, and I usually hate them and I think I know the reason now. It's because I usually just don't get enough sleep when I do a morning workout. So then I just feel like crap for the rest of the day. So I figured out my sleep doing the morning workouts, and it's made my sleep schedule just a lot better. Like I'm going to bed at like 10 p.m. on the dot, and I feel super well rested, and I can wake up earlier and just get a lot more done. So I'm gonna try to keep with that. So we'll see. Also, Scott made a point about the Kool-Aid tasting good. Um, I feel like in the same place at my job. I'm only like 6 months into it, and I'm hoping the Kool-Aid will continue to taste good for years to come. But we'll see. I feel like the Kool-Aid always tastes great at the beginning of every job.
Yeah, I feel like maybe we should do a whole episode on Kool-Aid. What's your favorite flavor? Like how do you prefer it? No, let's see. My stand-up update. Let's see. This last week we had like this really pretty large on-site for our sort of entire organization. Ton of miscellaneous events. There was sort of like AI agents hackathon where like one of the categories was just like you have to vibe code everything. Which I don't know how many people sort of submitted that versus building custom MCP stuff. But anyway, yeah, it was kind of nice to sort of see a few faces in person again, both on my team and a few other teams around me. Um, Outside of work, I've been tinkering a little bit more and more with both like my Obsidian setup in terms of my notes and like how I'm managing tasks within there, and I'm like kind of I don't know trying to work around some of the friction points of what I'm finding with it. Um, and outside of my notes, I'm also tinkering with using Tinybase, which just had their like a V6 major release, which is like a kind of like a sync engine, storage engine for like websites. It's a really neat project. It just like gives you like kind of database and also like maybe not necessarily like database fidelity, like sort of just like raw like storage primitives for web apps. Allow you to like synchronize to the browser, like in session storage, local storage, stuff like that, or persist it to a server. Um, anyway, it's pretty neat, pretty exciting. Um, yeah, I think that's about it, I guess. And then obviously the keyboard, I'm excited. Hopefully it gets here soon, and I can test it out for before our next episode. All right, is that it? Any further thoughts that people have? All right. Remember to like, subscribe, comment, share this post with someone you cherish. Yeah, we need more listeners. Feel free to join our Discord and join in on the conversations there. It's pretty lonely in there. It's just I think maybe 4 of us at the moment, but hopefully it grows over time.
We're looking at you, Romania.
That's true. All right.
Later.
Peace out.
Peace.